Matt. I am Matt Kim. Good morning, everybody. Let's fix that. I'm in Montreal, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful Tuesday, as I am on vacation here for the next few days, but still giving you wrestling match. Special start time today, 10 a.m. Eastern. Same thing for Wednesday and Thursday. Promise you that. I'll be traveling back on Friday, so I will tell you that you do need to be subscribed to the WrestlingMatchShow.com because, there's a little bonus content might be dropping this week. You want to make sure you're ready for it. Patrick, what's up to you? Raw was. We're going to get into that one. A surprisingly amazing Raw last night. There we go. That's a little better. Based on where it was, but we'll get into that. But please make sure you've subscribed. It's not under Todd. I didn't bring them. I thought about it. I looked back. I was leaving my studio area at home, and I looked back, and I was like, nope. Todd, this vacation is not for you. I'm so sorry. But it is for me. But vacation does not stop the Wrestling Mat. Please subscribe at the WrestlingMatchShow.com. Turn on the notifications. You don't want to miss a thing. A lot more bonus content ideas coming your way. Myself and Chef reactions. Watching the first WCW Nitro for the Mall of America back in September 1995. That will be dropping this week. You do not want to miss that. So make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications for the WrestlingMatchShow.com. And follow us on social media, WrestlingMat23. That's where you will not miss many announcements. Anything that we put out there, it's up there for you. You won't miss a thing. So make sure you follow us on Twitter, Instagram, at WrestlingMat23. Also, merchandise. Do you guys want shirts, hoodies, hats? I don't know. Mic flags? What do you want? Would you like some Wrestling Mat merch? Discussions are indeed underway. So if you'd like a piece of Wrestling Mat merch, very specific, maybe you want something that I haven't even thought of yet or we haven't thought of yet here at the Wrestling Mat, let us know. Please let us know right now. Yeah, we'd like to do a little merch here at the Wrestling Mat. But as we get going here on this Tuesday morning, let's talk all about Monday Night Raw. Grid poll up. Do I look different in Canada? I am in Montreal. I got screwed over by an Airbnb yesterday, but you guys probably don't want to hear about that. You should have a working shower. I'm just saying. You should have a working shower if you're going to promote an Airbnb. So now I'm at the Hyatt. Shout out to the Hyatt. Tom Green, going to get my mom a wrestling mic flag for her birthday in a few months. Does she have a show, Tom? Would she like to share it? Tom, by the way, thinking of you and the family about Gus this morning. I saw the post, but glad to have you here with us this morning. And yes, it is at 10 a.m. It is a morning program here at the Wrestling Mat, but let's get into all things Monday Night Raw. If you got those merch ideas, questions, comments, I'm staring right at the chat right now. So if you got them, I will be addressing them on the show. So Monday Night Raw, Corpus Christi, Texas. A lot of you may know. For those that don't, considered the worst crowd in wrestling. Yet they get a Raw like once a year. But is it just considered typically the worst crowd in wrestling? I don't know why. I don't know why they have that reputation, or the fact that every time they go there, it tends to sound that way. I don't know why that is the case, though. So, admittedly, all right, 2 days after Clash of the Castle, travel, jet lag, all that stuff, I can see why there wasn't high expectations for this Raw. I didn't think, as you guys heard yesterday on my Clash of the Castle review, I didn't think it was a particularly good show. I thought it was fine at best. I gave it, I initially gave it a B, and I thought about it more, and I moved that down to a C+, and that's not scientific by any way or any means, but just kind of how I felt about the show. Did it have a big moment that would resonate beyond Saturday? I'm happy for Alba and Isla. I said that when it happened. They got a little interview time last night, but it didn't have that big moment, and it felt like it could have happened with Drew. It could have happened in a bigger way with Drew. So I'll throw this poll up there right now, because Raw was certainly different than Clash of the Castle. Was Monday Night Raw better than Clash of the Castle? Did you get more enjoyment out of watching Raw last night than the PLE on Saturday? That poll's going up right now. And by the way, if you want to vote in the poll and you're watching elsewhere, make sure you are subscribed to the WrestlingMatchShow.com. And you can vote in the poll exclusively on our YouTube community page. So please go do that right now. We'd love to know what you're thinking. Was Raw better than Clash at the Castle? I think you'll pick up by how I talk about Raw than what I thought. But Raw, with a surprise, Seth Rollins back already. Much needed, I would have to say. And he comes back, and there he is. And I think people thought he cut his hair. He cut it down a little bit, I guess, but whatever. Typical Seth Rollins look. And Priest comes out to confront him. And in what has to feel a bit babyface-ish, yes, he gives Seth a title shot. Just hands it over. In a display of respect, in a display of I want to prove I'm a great champion. I think that was an interesting choice because he threw out that challenge, and Seth even said, like, we're similar in so many ways. We both came from a dominant group. We both won Money in the Bank. We both cashed in at Mania. And then, like, Seth made a very simple, like, yeah, but I found my balls or something like that. I was like, okay, I don't think it was a weird line. It was a very weird throwback to a previous era type line. But I thought Priest just like saying, like, and Seth's like, what is this setup? Like, and he was trying to be smart about it. And he's saying, well, no, nobody even knows I'm out here. Well, I'm pretty sure they know you're out here because they can watch the screens. But it was an interesting presentation of Priest. And, there has been thought that he'll turn babyface at some point, and he's got his supporters. And he did. When he first came to Raw a few years back, he, didn't lose the whole year and was pretty damn over. It's what happened to him in NXT. He got over, surprisingly, at least to me, to a pretty strong level. I still feel like there are times when I listen to Priest on the mic and the confidence dips just for a little bit here and there. Either he gets lost in his words or whatever it may be. But there is times when I feel like there's a dip there as it comes to Priest. Not the worst thing in the world, something he can correct. But when you're in there with guys who are so supremely confident on the mic at all times, I thought it happened with Drew. I thought it happened a little bit with Seth. You guys are saying, so far, 100% Raw was better than Clash of the Castle. But we set up Seth Rollins and Priest for the World Championship at Money in the Bank, and it's only a couple weeks away. So Seth seems to be totally good to go. I thought he would take more time, but I guess because he had time before Mania, he didn't do that much at Mania. I mean, he did, but he also, didn't because he was done right after that. And now he's back. So I hope he got enough rest. I hope he's good to go. Grace Stambino, yes, these are my vacation shows here in Montreal. We'll be doing this on Wednesday and Thursday, also at 10 a.m. Eastern. And something to keep an eye on, we will be moving time slots next week, but we'll get to that and sticking to that time slot. I'll throw this out there. It's Seth versus Priest happening too soon, kind of happening out of nowhere. Obviously, we saw, Seth was out there technically when Priest cashed in Money in the Bank. I think he was getting help to the back, but he was out there, and Priest kind of acknowledged that. Now, there's not a hell of a lot of story here other than, well, you were the champ. You were a great champ. I didn't get to face you. I wanted to face you, so now I'll face you. Priest at the presser was very much, people say I was going to be a transitional champ. I couldn't beat Drew. Look what they are now. He was angry. And I think he was pissed off because his knee was bothering him. And thank goodness, by the way, Priest is okay. That would have been a real bummer if he also would have gone down. Really testing the depth of Monday Night Raw. Let's move on to Braun Strowman and Chad Gable, because this was a Strowman squash of, I don't know if it really mattered that much based on what happened the rest of the night. But Strowman gets the win, and there was that spot with Strowman and Tozawa, and he threw Tozawa into Gable. So Gable, after the match, blames Tozawa and slaps him. And slaps him that Otis snapped and turned around. And I will go back to this once again. If you don't know, Corpus Christi, terrible crowd, terrible. Like, if you would have picked it ahead of time, it would have been the last place to do the Otis moment. And they were up for it, which might be the most telling thing about this entire story, that the historically worst crowd in professional wrestling got the Otis moment, at least the first, real big one, and they were there for it. So the worst crowd in professional wrestling got the Otis shove, and what a sell by Gable on top of it, and they were there. And they sold it big on commentary, and then Otis took his friends and he left, or as he called them last week, his family. And Chad was left going, what the hell? And I thought about how they were going to do this, when they were going to pull the trigger, because it's not about just this. We know we're going to get Chad and Otis at some point in some kind of match. That's really where the physicality's got to go up a notch. Now, I do wonder, how do they get there? Is this a singles match at Money in the Bank? As I talked about a singles match at SummerSlam. I wanted this to be over for the IC title. It's not. We'll get to the IC title. That went in a completely different direction as the night went on. But Chad and Otis now, how does it work its way in? Are they both in Money in the Bank qualifiers? Do one of them get in? I talked about that idea of, if they were still together, which it looks like that is over with. That's done. Great Stambino. Did anyone think Otis was going to World's Strongest Slam Chad? Is that the move? Because Chad hasn't done, there's like this wrestling logic to it where Chad hasn't done anything but slap, right? It's just slaps. There's no punches. There's no big moves. He hasn't dropped Otis. He slapped Tozawa. He's been more of an emotional bully than anything else. So do you save something bigger for a match or something? That is what I would, the World's Strongest Slam would get a big reaction. But it's almost like tit for tat. It's got to match what Chad has done, at least physically. That might be what they're thinking. I'm not sure. I think I'm okay with what they did last night. It was a big shove. You want to lead to more. But Chad hasn't done anything other than some slaps. Otis shoved him. Slap only. I'll throw this out there. We'll put up this poll, but is SummerSlam the right time for Chad and Otis? But I'll throw this just generally into the chat right now. Would you have liked to seen more from Otis in terms of what if last night is the official end of Alpha Academy, and it very well may be, would you like to have seen more from Otis? Should there have been more to it? Tom says, Otis showing the guts to say no more works enough. A hero can't brutalize a villain who hasn't brutalized anyone. That's the thing. It's here, which is bad enough. I still think I was good with it. It was a good shot. He walked out on him. And maybe Chad tries to convince him, and maybe that's the move, is Chad tries to convince and apologize, and you lure Otis in, and you lure them in, and that's when the beatdown happens. And maybe that's where the Creeds get involved and Ivy get involved. And it's really just a ruse. It's just a Chad, I'm sorry, my bad, we're good. And then they all run and take him out. Matthew Rodriguez. And if this is a reference to the question that Punk got at the presser, it's a funnier question. I wanted to see Hell in a Cell match between Otis and Chad Gable. I quit Hell in a Cell match between Otis and Chad Gable, storytelling at its finest. I hope that's a reference to the question that Punk got on Saturday. We're not quite there yet. Rob, no, Todd, I said I left Todd home. Todd got to stay home for this trip. But yes, as always, you can after the polls up. Is it the right time for Chad versus Otis? Is SummerSlam the right time? 89% of you say yes. I would assume that means we're not on Chad Otis for Money in the Bank in a couple weeks, and I don't think we should be. I think one of them should get in Money in the Bank, and the other gets involved. Otis deserves a big push after this. Do you agree? Matthew, I got news for you. What's happening, is a big push. Pushes are not always about championships. Pushes are about being on television and in featured storylines on a weekly basis. Chad and Otis are getting pushed right now. We are in the push. It's not always about titles. If they are getting this much feature, think about how much time these Alpha Academy segments are taking up. That's a push. That is dedicating a lot of television time, multiple segments per show, to this story. That is a push. Tom says, if Chad is among the living after Uncle Howdy, and we'll get to that, I'd love to see him use that to manipulate Otis to stay with him. That's a good call, Tom. And I'll keep saying it. They come back to the little things do connect. Everything that happens on the show seems to happen for a reason. Will Chad go, I could have used you, man. I'm so sorry. Look what happened to me when I didn't have you. I got taken out by this girl. I don't know who they are. There is something to that. Rob says SummerSlam gives enough time to build up even more friction between the two, make people want to pay money to see the match. Yeah. I don't think you need to do that. I don't want it to get lost in the shuffle because it's tough. Unless you're in a title match at Money in the Bank, it's the show is about the briefcases. It's not about anything else. Great Stambino. Chad getting a spot to end the show with being beat down is definitely a push. Yeah, exactly. Featured everywhere. This is a push. We are in the push right now. We'll get to more of Chad, though, later on. I'm trying to stay in order. We had a qualifier between Io Sky, Kiana James, and Zelina Vega, which Liv got involved with to distract Zelina, and Io got the win as she tries to repeat as Miss Money in the Bank. I think she needed to get some wins back, and obviously, I don't think we've discussed it here. She's going to be working at Marigold, which is Hayashi Shita, that's big, and we'll have to talk more. We'll probably save for maybe tomorrow. Yeah, we'll see what time we have here. I'd like to talk more about those working relationships that got a lot of news over the weekend, including AJ against Marufuji in Noah. Didn't think I'd see that one coming. Do you think Matthew Rodriguez, Otis versus Chad needs a stipulation match in the future to end the feud? Yeah, I think they can get multiple matches out of it. I think so. I think it's a matter of if and when the Creeds and Ivy end up with Chad. Does that happen after the first match? Does that happen at the end of the first match? I'll keep going back to that. Otis, if they're going to go multiple matches, and they should, Otis shouldn't win the first one. Chad should get help from Alpha Academy to win the first one. That should, to Tom's point, Chad tries to lure them back. Look what happened last week. I'm so sorry. I lost you guys, and I got attacked by this group. I need people. I'm so, and they feel bad for him. There's your attack with Otis, with Gable, and the Creeds and Ivy. What I realized last week is that I didn't need you guys. I needed better than you guys. Look what I have now. Look at these studs behind me. Ivy could tear you to shreds, Maxine. Remember what they did when they first got to Raw? Otis, they put you up on their shoulders, and they dropped you like the load you are. Just talk up everybody, the new group. So then we had Sheamus. By the way, Liv Morgan and Dom's vest is not something I really care about, but that's what the women's champ is doing on the show right now. Stealing vests and not too worried about her title other than, I guess, costing Zelina. And what's that going to lead to? Zelina couldn't get in the ladder match, but she'll get a shot at Liv. That seems like where it's going. So she skips the line because Liv and her have an issue. Sammy gets into the IC title situation, and they immediately pivot away from everything with Chad. Chad tried to talk to Pierce. He's like, no, back of the line, blah, blah, blah. So Sammy starts talking about what's next, highs and lows and all that. And here comes Bron Breakker. And you go, okay, here we go. And then Sheamus. But we got the face-offs. Sheamus has made it very clear he wants the IC title. He just keeps talking about it. Sammy's like, you guys got to settle this. I'll jump to that. We get to that match, but it ends in a DQ because Kaiser's not done with Sheamus. Now, this all happened. Sammy goes, hey, you guys both want this? I think you got something to settle here. Now, I know we talked about recently the idea of Bron and Sheamus, and I was concerned about what we saw right there. Can you put that picture up again, Dom, for 1 sec? Go back to that picture there of those three. Sammy's taller than Bron Breakker. Sheamus is obviously taller than Bron Breakker. So this is the next step. Bron's got to keep up that intensity. The booking needs to be what it is. Continue as strong as it is. And you got to make sure that Bron comes across bigger than he is, because he's not bigger than those guys. Now, when you are booked the way Bron has been booked and was booked last night, that's not a problem. Being able to cut anybody in half with that spear, that is a move you can hit on anybody. If you want to put a good finisher, put a good finisher, it's something that you can hit on anybody. Bron can believably hit that spear on anybody and take them out. So Bron and Sheamus have this match, and it goes to DQ because of Kaiser. And Kaiser can't get away from Sheamus, and he's going to go take him out. But Bron sees what's happening, and they take that unbelievable high shot of the chase around the ring, or one going one side, one going the other, and Bron spears Kaiser. Why? He's pissed off that he cost him. So there's a brain in Bron. There is a brain in Bron, because he's going, screw you. Don't get involved in my shit. If I beat Sheamus, I'm probably still lined up for Sami Zayn in the IC title. So there's a chaos to Bron Breakker that is not limited to baby faces, which is a good thing. He is blinded by his intensity and his rage, and if you get in his way, he doesn't care who you are. He's not looking for friends. Now, does that hurt him at all? As we put up a poll. If Bron is more of a tweener, does it hurt him? Should he be a heel? Should he be a face? He's going to be a face eventually. What he's doing is pretty awesome and cool to see. I think people will get behind that. I think Bron Breakker's booking has made you sit up and watch, because you know he's going to do something. You go, oh my God, he caught him. And that's the best thing you could have, is someone getting that kind of attention where people have to pay attention because they knew this guy's going to do something crazy. Much in like a similar way of if you watched a lucha match on Nitro or something of like, oh, you know what this finish is. You have to watch. And I think Bron is getting booked in a way where you have to stay up and pay attention. You have to take a look at that and go, you want to show people Bron Spear. Bron Spear is the kind of thing that could live on social media for days after it happens. There's going to be a compilation of his spears. Goldberg's on Busted Open in a half hour. I hope that they ask him about Bron Breakker's spear. And I'm not plugging that show. I'm just saying you have to ask Goldberg about Bron Breakker's spear. And I'm sure that Goldberg knows Bron, because he knows his dad. And I'm sure Bron and Goldberg crossed paths. I hope that is asked later on today. Not my show to ask it. Should be asked. Before the DQ and all that stuff, I want to go back because Drew McIntyre came out and they're chanting CM Punk and Corpus Christi because they were taunting him, even though CM Punk has now been a complete scumbag and a dick to Drew on 2 different occasions at a much higher level than Drew has been to Punk. And he quits. He pulls the Batista and says, I'm done. I quit. And Pierce meets him, and Hunter talks to him, and that's it. I guess Punk did enough. So Drew goes home over the weekend, loses because of Punk, comes back to Raw and quits. Now, I think we all know Drew McIntyre is not quitting WWE. If he's got free time, though, my friend has an open invite to the show. But Punk will be, as a Raw superstar, in Chicago on Friday for SmackDown. And I think, he was saying, well, I hope to make, find out I'm cleared. I'm going to skip Corpus Christi on Monday, and I'm going to come to SmackDown on Friday from Chicago, where I'm from. Is it too obvious for Drew to show up there? Would that be good for this feud, though? The idea of you can't contain these guys. They're going to do whatever they want. They have to settle this somehow. This can't be causing such chaos in the company. They're doing it, they're battling via social media and headquarters. They're battling across the world. Punk stole a ref shirt, which is apparently just allowed to happen now, and cost Drew. Punk got involved in WrestleMania, even though he's supposed to be a commentator. Drew shows up at SmackDown, and he's not supposed to be there either. I mean, WWE's basically given their blessing by promoting Punk in Chicago, but he's a Raw superstar. I would assume that's where it's got to go. Do they go like unsanctioned match or something like that? We'll see. I don't know. Would it be too obvious for Drew to show up on Friday? I guess that's a question I throw out to you guys as well. How much do you want to stretch this out? Is it a big brawl at Money in the Bank? I don't see Punk being in that match. I mean, it would be, somewhat simple booking to Punk gets in the match and then Drew costs him, sure. I just don't think that's the match Punk comes back in. Do you want to put him in harm's way? That seems like a bad idea. Speaking of Money in the Bank, Jey Uso beat Finn and Rey Mysterio in the main event to go to Money in the Bank. So he's in, not a surprise. So Jay's in. We know that Io's in. They announced Braun, Chad, and Bronson Reed for next week. So that leads us to what happened after the main event. And we get our Wyatt Sicks reveal. All the lights go down. And I'm not going to give anybody names. I'm going to go with what I know. Nikki Cross, in her new iteration, comes out by herself. They go to that door at the front of the entranceway, similar to what Bray was doing with Uncle Howdy. And they show her. She's got an unreal look. And they go to the back, and you see what I believe is Eric Rowan and bodies. And you start to recognize some of these bodies. And they keep going back. And there, I believe, was the former Dexter Lumis. And I'm sorry if I'm giving away any of this stuff. I think people know that that's who they are. And there's more bodies. And they go to what I believe was Joe Gacy and some iteration of Huskus. And there's Chad with, like, blood coming out of it. There it is. There's the... Chad, don't lose your friends, dude. Look what happened to you. But you know what? A, good on Chad Gable for doing that. Not that I think he would have said no. But B, if you show someone who is that prominently involved in the show, who is one of the most consistently used people, and hell, he was fighting for the IC title for the last couple months. One of the better wrestlers on the show, he got taken out. Right there, that has far more impact than if it was a lower card person that we never see. Because it's Chad Gable, you realize that this group is going to do whatever. Look what they've done. Look at the wrath that they left. And to Tom's point, it would be cool if Chad worked that in. I'm sorry, guys. I'm so sorry. You know, he's crying. That was so terrifying what happened to me last week, blah, blah, blah. If I only had you by my side. But because it was Chad and there was just a wake and they wrecked the gorilla position and all that, okay. All the QR codes and something, it means that here they are, and it's the Wyatt Sicks, SICKS. Now, there's 5 people that we saw, or 5 entities here that we saw. Who's Six? Who's Bray Sicks? Is he the omnipresent 6th member? Is there somebody else? Is it Alexa Bliss? SICKS. Maybe there's no number involved. It looked cool. It got people talking. All the reactions I saw on social media were just of amazement. And my goodness, there is the difference in production value and what you can do when it's done correctly. But the thing with this, as it always is, especially in this day and age, where there are no characters even close to that. The closest thing you've had to sell for Supernatural is what, House of Black? Edge dropping red viscous liquid on top of Alistair, Malachi Black. It ain't. They're Taker worked because everybody sold it. It was also the 90s. The Supernatural stuff. Matt Hardy teleporting in AEW didn't work because it didn't fit. The Bray Wyatt stuff was always cool in concept. And sometimes that's okay. Sometimes it's not about the match. Sometimes it's the bells and whistles. The best Bray Wyatt Fiend match was the Funhouse. It wasn't a match. It was a presentation. The stuff with LA Knight, the lights out, whatever the hell that thing was with the Mountain Dew, there was nothing special about that. It wasn't good. So it looks cool. How do you carry that out into matches? Right? Did they set the tone for what this group is so the rest of Raw has to be spooked? I remember talking to Seth when he was supposed to go up against the Fiend in that Hell in a Cell. It's not an easy thing to figure out how to handle if you're on the other side of it. How spooky are they? How spooked can you get? How do you beat them? Are they mortal? I'll ask this. Does the presentation hurt your enjoyment of pro wrestling? Is it too much of a suspended disbelief? Can you drop yourself in? Or is wrestling too real now? That is something. The jury's out. I don't know. I was there. I was in the building the night that Bray came back in Philadelphia after Seth and Riddle with Cormier in the fight pit. I was in the building that night in Philadelphia, and it was a cool feeling. It looked awesome. It felt like a big moment. It felt like theatrics, which is what professional wrestling is. But how do you follow it up? I was always a Funhouse fan. I thought that after Bray lost to Randy as the Fiend with a simple, with the Alexa coming out of that Jack in the Box and all the black stuff, like she got hit with Papa Shango goo or whatever. I thought they would just, because Bray did one more appearance after that before he was released in the Funhouse or whatever it was, and I went, he should just be like a Wes Anderson character. Like Bray should just be around commenting on things in the funhouse. And then eventually you can get back to stuff. But it was more about him being a character within the show. How does that work in today's professional wrestling? J Love Sports. Never since mid-90s Undertaker was I more spooked. Their acting is really awesome, too. I would agree with that. That looked good. It was presented well. Everybody did a great job in their role. J Love continues WWE as entertainment and less actual wrestling. With how they do special effects, I don't mind it. Okay, I would just say, as much as it is entertainment, it's all reality-based. Liv trying to get to Dom is a reality-based story. Chad being a power-hungry bully is a reality-based story. Bron Breakker trying to wreck people and now battling over the IC title is reality-based. They are telling stories, but they're all believable stories. You guys say 85% doesn't hurt your enjoyment. That's totally cool. Now, as Rob just said, Uncle Howdy versus LA Knight, SummerSlam, in a pineapple Fanta ice cream truck match. I actually thought that hurt Bray. They're not going to turn down money, but Bray Wyatt being in a sponsored match. Like, you can't work the spooky gimmick into a sponsor. It doesn't go. You can't have everything. You can't. Like that was tough to believe. Once again, I was in the building for that. Nobody reacted to that thing. Great Stambino. I don't think this Wyatt Sicks faction is to be too steeped in supernatural elements of horror and suspense thriller works for me. Yeah, that is the key. If they can do it, and they don't have secret powers, they don't have supernatural powers, it can work. Tom says there has to be some sort of human element behind the gimmick. These people hurting because they lost Bray and carrying out chaos in his name is way more intriguing than magic and wizardry, in my opinion. Agree. I will tell you this story. There was I don't even want to say pitch. It was supposed to happen. When Edge had Judgment Day, he was going to get powers. That was going to be a thing. There was a Raw episode, and they bailed on it, where Edge, and this was all Vince, was going to be moving, like floating towards the ring. Like he was going to be watching a match, and like somehow he was moving closer in some throne. You couldn't see it. It was almost like he was levitating towards the ring closer. And I read it, and I was like, where did he get these powers from? It makes no sense. And I'm pretty sure that was Vince's fingers getting involved in it and not Edge. Edge did not want to have superpowers as far as I know. But I read it and I was like, ugh. And they didn't do it. So for whatever reason, they didn't do it. Whether they couldn't execute it in production or whatever, they didn't do it. But that Judgment Day, and I think Edge just talked about that, was supposed to turn into spooky, superpowered Judgment Day. It's better that they didn't do it. But where do they go from here? Where do they feud? What do they mess with next? Look at the chaos they can cause. What if they wreck the whole Money in the Bank? Would help booking. You don't have to worry about 2 briefcases. What's their next move? Are we going to get introductions to, where does the QR codes go from here? Is it more just straightforward? This is this person. This is this person. Yeah, the horror element versus the supernatural element is what they have to balance. And it shouldn't go supernatural at all if you want it to be believable. There's just also that, do they have that Jason Voorhees of them where they can't be, knocked down for too long? Do they get beat? Can they take a beating? Maybe that's more of it. But that was pretty much Raw last night. So a lot packed into a show that didn't have a venue that reacts well, and they did well with it. So a better show than, I'll say it, I know we put the poll up, a better show than Clash. Some intrigue heading into SmackDown with Punk and Drew. a world title match already made, and they basically had to rush because they only have a few weeks to get to Money in the Bank with Priest and Seth. A step forward with Chad and Alpha Academy, a big step forward. Some qualifiers still coming. They reset a lot of things. They took things forward where they needed to. Pretty well done Raw overall. And if you would have told me that people were saying that the Corpus Christi Raw was the best Raw of the year, I'd say you're crazy. But a lot was taken care of in the best way possible. So I'm going to get back to vacation now, but I'll be back with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you comment. Going to catch up on some comments. I will do that, of course, in the coming days. And make sure you turn the notifications on for the WrestlingMatchShow.com. We have the episode where Chef and I react to the first Nitro dropping at some point this week, but we will be back with you 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. We'll talk about NXT. We'll get into more of those inter-promotional relationships that WWE seems to be looking for and has already made. Marigold with Io Sky and Hayashi Shita and AJ Styles, Marufuji, and Noah coming up. We'll talk all about that. Whatever else news breaks between now and tomorrow in NXT, we'll have right here for you at the WrestlingMatchShow.com. Make sure you follow us on social media at WrestlingMatt23 and the Matt Camp for me. Send your questions, your comments, anything you want. Yeah, what kind of merch would you like from the Wrestling Mat? Please let us know. But I'll be back tomorrow to talk about wrestling even more. See you tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern right here on the Wrestling Mat.